Good morning, everyone. This is the first in a series of videos I'm going to be doing to directly answer questions that have come in the last couple of weeks. So this video is going to focus on the CV as opposed to a resume. So I had a master's level student come in and talk to me, and I know she was looking for a job outside in just the real world, so she wasn't going to be working in academia, but she needed something that was basically part-time on the side to supplement the loans and grants that she was taking. And so she asked me, when am I allowed to use a resume? And when am I allowed to use a CV? And if a CV is appropriate, how exactly am I supposed to format that? Is there a standard that people are expecting to see? Does it vary by location or job or interested party? So I let her know that I'd be making this video, and I want to talk about some of the different parts of the CV, which is a curriculum vitae, if you're not familiar with it, what we use them for, how you can spin it to best highlight your accomplishments and kind of the direction you think you're going to be heading academically. So I'm going to share my screen, and basically I'm going to go through mine. Now, obviously, this is not the paradigm of what they're supposed to look like, but at least you have mine as a template, and then I will upload it onto the Facebook page. You'll have this video in the YouTube Theory Generator Playground page, but the content I'll make sure is on Facebook. So let me share screens. All right, so you should be seeing my CV along with my messy desktop. Oh, this is an important thing to mention, actually. So you see I have this screenshot right here of me at a gala, and this was the picture that I was going to be submitting for a newsletter because Charles Drew wanted me to be in a newsletter, and they've been using this terrible picture of me for a couple of months now. And so this is maybe the third or fourth time that someone has asked me to get headshots. So if you have the chance to get headshots, I highly recommend it. That way, if anybody asks you, if they're quoting you and they want an image, some applications will ask for a picture, then you have something kind of professional as opposed to me right there at a gala, which isn't looking terribly professional. So just an FYI, good thing to have on hand. So, okay. So this is my CV, and anytime I send it to anyone, I'm not going to do this for you because I want you guys to be able to use it as a template, so I'll make sure that it is adjustable. But anytime I send this to an external entity or group, I make sure I send it as a PDF because I want it to be a locked document, and I don't want anybody to kind of change or manipulate what's on there because it's something that's supposed to represent me. So I tend to kind of like protect it with PDF status. So again, at the top, very simple, you're going to have your name and your credentials. Sometimes the credential list varies by department. I've seen some people put RN first in nursing before they put anything else. Check and see kind of what the focus of that particular facility or job environment is and what they value. Sometimes you have lots more that you could add here, but you may choose to kind of hold it back if you're concerned that maybe this is a job in the industry and it's not an academic job, and having too many credentials behind your name might make them think you're overqualified, even if all of your experience is just in academia and it's not actually on the floor. So again, that's a little bit of a judgment call. In general, you're going to start with your education, and normally they want just the formal academic programs that you've attended. So you may have gotten training at other places, and you'll see I have that later on in the CV. But these are actual programs associated with some sort of credential or degree, basically. So that's what I've done. They generally don't want to see big gaps between things. If there are big gaps between things, then they're going to see it right at the beginning of your CV, and they're going to want to ask you about it. So be prepared to answer some questions. Oh, here's another piece. So at UCLA, for example, when I did women's studies and I did LGBT topics, that's going to turn some people off. And if it's not applicable to the specific job that I'm looking for, and for some reason I feel like they might be biased against me, that might be something that I would leave off. Again, it's a judgment call, but I may just put like Bachelor's of Arts, right? Same thing with clinical nurse leadership. That may be not something that they want to see, possibly because I'm going for a job that's kind of underneath those credentials. Like if I want to be a floor nurse, they may not want to see that and allow me to be a floor nurse. They might want me to be a charge nurse, and maybe I don't want to be. So you can adjust these things as long as you actually list what's important, like BA or MS, whatever. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to go to a license and certification section. Not everybody's going to have this, obviously, and that's totally fine. So if you're not in the nursing field, it's possible that you don't. But if you do have it, you want to put it here. Another thing that I recommend if you are working or you're applying for a job at a clinical site is to actually put your number, your license number there. It makes it a little easier for them to search you in the system. Some places need to verify that you actually are licensed or certified. I didn't put it in this case because this is for an academic position, so it was more to give them a sense that, I don't know, I was well-rounded, I had experience, but I didn't necessarily want them to think I was going to be doing any IV therapy, so, okay. Now this is the part where you have a lot of freedom to add in different training that you've done that may not be part of a formal graduate education or undergraduate education program. So for example, when I was at UCLA last year, I teamed up with some other kids in the policy department in public health, and we entered this New York University Politics Society competition. It was like a policy case competition. But as part of this application, we gave them writing samples that they critiqued and then returned to us. And therefore, we were getting training in the writing up of policy because there was an exchange of ideas. They helped us grow. It was graded, obviously. We did win. Woo! First time UCLA had ever entered, and we won. We beat out 800 teams, which was kind of a big deal. But the idea is, if something is on your CV, then whoever's reading it has the opportunity to ask you questions about it. And then you can really expand upon all of this background and interesting stuff that you've done. So this is a good way to highlight that. Again, this thing at Stanford, which it was a fellowship, so there was maybe 3 months worth of training, but it wasn't like I was there for 3 months getting intense training. It was that I was collaborating with people at the school, and they were kind of helping me grow and helping me understand this particular research project, especially working with international scholars, so that was important. Whereas this one, the Albert Schweitzer Fellowship, was actual mentorship for about a year, where we attended monthly groups and it was very involved. And so you'll see this one was just a week at Johns Hopkins. So you really want to make sure that you sit down and think about all of the training that you've received and all of the programs, because my experience is that people do a lot of things in their daily lives, but they don't keep track of them. They don't keep notes. And so they just kind of forget, oh yeah, I presented at that conference, or oh yeah, I did that training with this one professor, or I went to this data boot camp. But you know, if you don't write it down, it just kind of becomes a small detail of this busy period in your life. So I always recommend people keep an accomplishment sheet, like a Word document that's just open on their computer. Anything that happens, excuse me, any kind of big event, presentation, training, just write it down, put the dates, and that way you have it. Okay. This next part is kind of what differentiates a CV from a regular resume. People need to know that you are worthy of academic and financial support. And a good way to prove that you're worthy of support is to show that you have this history of having garnered support and then done good things with it. So I actually include a specific section of funding down to very small awards, right? Like this one, because it just shows that there's kind of consistent belief in the kind of things that I'm trying to do. And if I'm able to prove some good stewardship towards this sort of donations or grants or whatever it is, in this world, if you win, you just kind of keep on winning, especially in academia. So the more you have here, the more you're going to get. So I highly recommend adding this section, even if all it is like funding that you got from school for that year, for that semester. I would add it in. Here's another piece that they're going to see on the CV that they're not going to see or care about on your resume, which makes it very uniquely for positions in academia. Published, submitted, and in progress manuscripts. Now, generally in the health sciences, we do an APA formatting. People are going to expect to see that, and they're going to have certain expectations around how many of these publications you should have by certain periods of your academic life. You're going to put most recent on top. Generally, you're going to restrict it to the most relevant. So for written presentations, for written papers like submitted to journals, you want to do about 10. For conference presentations, so oral presentations and also poster presentations, again, you want to restrict it to about 10. And what you want to do is you want to angle those things to this specific position that you're asking about. So in this application, I wanted them to know that I've worked with underserved communities, I've worked with aging communities, lots of work with Latinos. And so you'll notice that's what's here, right? Lots of work that was specifically with Latinos or Latino women or about diabetes, because that's the topic. It doesn't mean that I didn't do other things during this time. It just means that I understand that you're hiring me or you're looking at giving me a position for one specific thing. And so I want you to know that I am a relative expert, and that I'd be a good addition to your team. So this is the space where you kind of have to do that. Actually, before I move on, people ask sometimes, is it okay to put in things that maybe didn't happen for some reason? Like this was a time that I was supposed to present in Canada, actually. And I ended up having to have surgery. So it's still there because it was accepted and it went through a peer review process, but canceled due to illness so that, you could be really explicit about it. Same thing with some works that are in progress. So, this is something that I am planning on working on some more. This I actually have just finished and I'm about to submit. It's okay to say what stage you're in. So if it's in review or you're going back and forth with changes, it's okay to write that there. The main thing is people want to know whether or not you're able to create scholarship and actually get it out there, because that's a lot of what drives our funding and what drives our ability to continue our research. All right. Clinical research and teaching positions. Now, you may not have a clinical position here if you're not in healthcare, but you still want to put down things that show that you've demonstrated some leadership and that you've also formed some sort of collaborative relationship with an outside group that you're going to be working with. For me, again, I have done a lot of underserved populations, combination of physical and mental illness co-occurring. And so you'll see that these aren't all of the clinical research and teaching positions I've ever done. These are just the ones that really focus in on what I'm trying to portray as myself applying for this particular job, right? So just like the 10 publications above, these you really want to focus on what do these relate to in the new thing that I'm applying for. So again, dates, basic description. If there's a title of a project, you want to do that. You want to say who you worked with. It can be brief. You can bullet list it. You can just list it straight. There's no hard and fast rules about this. Unless you're submitting to NIH for some really big grant, people do the CV in a variety of ways. The main thing is that you want it to be very readable. So anybody who looks at it, that's why I kind of made some things bold. Anybody who looks at this can immediately find the thing that's interesting to them and then zero in on that and get some other details about it. Okay, so the last piece, again, make sure that you add some volunteer work, some community service stuff. Founder and student mentor of TGP. You want to have some professional memberships on here. And again, these should reflect kind of the larger who you are as a person. They should be demonstrating that you're interested in this field for more than just you and your personal benefit, because most of these memberships include providing scholarships to students, some volunteer work in the community, advocating at the state and local level for initiatives and propositions that are going to benefit in the direction that you think people should be benefited. And so you really do want to make sure that you have things that are applicable, again, to the specific job that you're applying for or position. So you'll see here, there's a few different things that I'm a member of, but they're all in the same kind of vein. So I may very well be a member of something else that's not listed here. And that's fine, because once they see your overall CV, and then of course, here's all your information down here. If you have a student profile, that's really helpful. You want to be able to link to your profile. There we go. Anything that specifically is going to give them more details about you. So in my case, this would be a good link. Another link would be the YouTube page or the Facebook page. Me on LinkedIn, anything that's going to show them that you are a consistent person across all of these different online realms kind of makes them have more confidence in you. And again, this link just basically did the exact same thing. Pulled up kind of a mini version of the CV, which is what people are expecting when you're in an academic setting. So that's the CV that I wanted to show you, but just to compare that real quick. I just wanted to show you what it looks like when I'm not submitting a CV so that you have kind of an immediate comparison of the two. This is a resume. So when I'm submitting a executive resume, it's a very different format, right? People do not have the time to go through 4 to 7 pages like they would in a CV. I start off with my title and kind of the important highlights about me. So here's like kind of a quick blurb of, you know, my experience, what I've done, how many years in a specific place, any like big wins, like these are some big wins for me. And then this is like what I've done in kind of private industry, like how I've created companies, that sort of thing. So again, it's meant to like either you get them or you lose them in those first 3 lines. And so you want them to be kind of oomphy. The next thing people want to see is actual demonstrated achievements. So as opposed to the CV where you're talking about your kind of experiential and training background, and you're talking about thoughts and ideas, and that allows people to think like what you might do in the future. This is about what you actually done. Excuse me, like the big red check marks that like, oh, I did that. So you'll see, again, 3 to 5, not more than that, because it's supposed to be a quick read. And generally people would love an actual number associated with some of your accomplishments. So increased productivity, percent of staff retention, reduced average length of stay, like those are the things that people care about, because in private industry, which is where you'd be using a resume, these things equate to money saved or spent, basically. And you want to make sure that they see that what you've done is going to be a financial payoff for them, because essentially in any position, you should be able to earn back as much as you're costing the company in your behavior and practice and whatever it is that you're doing there. Hopefully you're not just earning back your salary, but you're making them money beyond that. And so this is a good place to demonstrate that. Again, experience. Now, you saw some of this stuff on my CV, like a CMS audit advisor, right? I don't even think I even talked much about these 2 things because they're, you know, for pay positions and they involve some supervision. So I'm focusing very much just on the big positions. With a very brief, so I'll have the title here with a somewhat, I mean, this was a fairly complicated position, so it was hard to make it more brief than that, but with a fairly brief description. And then as you go further back, I always say like 4 to 5 years, then you can just do lines. And if they want to ask you questions about those positions, they will. You never want this to be longer than 2 pages. You'll see your education is at the bottom as opposed to the CV where it's like right at the top, because they are less concerned about this than they are about, but what have you done lately? Who have you worked with? What industry contacts have you made? So it's a very different spin. And you'll see that I incorporated training that that had its own whole different section. But that stuff just kind of got blended into the education section here, because industry sometimes cares a little bit about where you've been, but they're more concerned that like you have the legal licensure training to do what we're asking you to do, what you're applying to do, and kind of beyond that, it's a little fuzzy. And in this case, I did professional affiliations. So these aren't just groups that I'm a member of, but I talked about like, what is my actual position there? So, you know, I'm an advisory board member, or I'm the chair. I have to update this actually because I'm now the chair. Member scholar, like people want to know, what do you do there? Like, what do you do for them? And then finally, at the very bottom, research support, complete list of publications and abstracts available upon request. So instead of taking up all those pages to outline this or that paper or this or that experience, this is kind of a different spin on that. So now I'm going to stop sharing. So I hope that was helpful. I know it was very quick. And like I said, I'll make sure that the resources are available on the Facebook page. But the basic idea is that a CV is different than a resume because these are different positions that you're applying for. If you're trying to get a job, and your job, even if it's in your industry, the primary goal is for you to like make money for them and to earn money for yourself, you probably need a resume. But if you're applying for an academic position and you want them to see you as a scientist and scholar who has not only this kind of fairly holistic background and experience on the topic, but such that they can see how that might be a springboard to the next level of your research and scholarship, that's where you really do need a CV. And as you move into applying for some of the bigger grants, you're going to have things like a bio sketch, which the National Institutes of Health request, and that's very similar to something like this. It's a little more expanded and then still refined at the same time. But the basic idea is whatever they ask you for is what you give them. So if you're applying for a place and they say, great, bring a resume, then bring a resume. And if you have a scholarship application and it says that it wants a CV, then give them a CV. I can already anticipate people are going to say, what if my CV is like half a page? That is fine. I think that the only time to be dishonest about a position that you want, to be dishonest when you're applying and to kind of pad a resume or CV, is if you want to get into a position where you will be immediately over your head. I just don't think that's ever a good idea for anybody. Promotions come and we can be frustrated and sometimes underpaid, but promotions generally will come based on merit and when you're ready or when you're bored and you decide that you're ready to seek out and apply for the next level up. But if you kind of pad things, people who get it and know the industry will immediately see through what you're doing. So don't be scared to have a half-page CV. Lots of respectable students have that. Don't be scared to have a resume that only has a couple of things, including like maybe elder care or child care duties on there. I mean, we all start somewhere, and I tend to be much older than a lot of the people in the research collective, so I have a longer CV, but it's because I've had like a decade more than most of the people. So you can get a lot done in a decade, you know? In any case, I hope this was helpful. I did do a video on how to start a basic undergrad search, how to start looking at different colleges, and I posted that on Facebook, but I will put it specifically on our page. This will be available on the YouTube channel and on the Facebook page, but I'm only going to post my documents on the Facebook page, so just FYI. I hope everybody is having a great holiday season. We're already kind of in the thick of it. We're planning on having a holiday party probably in the middle of December, and information will be coming out about that. I hope everyone is doing well, and have a great week.